Right, in our next chapter, chapter 16, if you remember when Stuart last met Leonora, he arranged to meet her in the old gala bingo hall. Okay, so here today we've got Leonora's dog. Now you'll find out his name today, so listen in, and Stuart. Okay? Chapter 16. He reached the gala bingo hall at 10 to 11. There was a sign on the pavement outside that read, Early Bird Senior Citizen Session, 11 a.m. The doors were already open, and the foyer was heaving with old ladies. Stuart tried to edge in discreetly, but they all seemed terribly pleased to see him. And this is what the front of the bingo hall would look like. An old-fashioned bingo hall. And inside, there's all the old ladies and playing bingo. So let's imagine the scene. So all the old ladies seemed terribly pleased to see him. Hello, young man. Here with Granny, are you? Oh, it's nice to see a young face. 8, are you? Or 7, maybe? Now, that'll annoy him, because I think he's younger than he is. That's because he's short. He won't like that. He looked around for Leonora, but all he could see was a wall of sensible coats. It occurred to him that he might as well try to do some research while he was waiting. So he smiled back at one of the women and asked if she remembered the gala when it was a cinema. Oh, yes, she said. Doing a school project, are you? Said Stuart. Oh, it was lovely then, she continued. A commissionaire on the door, all dressed in red and gold. He'd salute you when you went in, and a great big fish tank in the middle of the foyer. She turned to her friend. Lorna, this young fellow wants to know if we remember this place when it was a cinema. Oh, remember it, said Lorna, who was all dressed in blue, including her shoes and glasses. We practically used to live here, didn't we, Vi? Lived here, confirmed Vi. Saw every film they ever showed. We used to sit in the 1 and 9s, and I always had a strawberry cone, and you always had a bag of toffees. Oh, those toffees, said Lorna. I'd forgotten about those. There was a machine just by the ticket office, wasn't there? You put in 3pence, and you got a little bag full. Always exactly the same number of toffees. Baker's dozen, said Vi. Unluckily for my teeth, added Lorna. Both women laughed. Is it still here somewhere, the toffee machine? Asked Stuart. Oh, no, love. Everything went when it was turned into a bingo hall. I remember them tearing it all out. This place is just an empty shell. A bell started to ring, and in the sudden shift of bodies, Stuart spotted a guide dog and squeezed through to where Leonora stood waiting. It's me, he said, putting a hand on her arm. Stuart. She smiled, and the dog sniffed Stuart's knees suspiciously. On the other side of the foyer, a man in a smart suit flung open the doors into the main hall. Have you ever played bingo? Asked Leonora as the sensible coat surged into the hall. No, said Stuart. The next half hour was a hideous embarrassment. Surrounded by people about 70 years older than himself and sitting next to someone who was actually blind, Stuart thought he might be in with a chance of winning. He was wrong. The caller announced the numbers at the speed of light. Everyone else had a row of at least 6 bingo cards, and Stuart only had one, and he still couldn't keep up. At one point, he was so flustered that he dropped his pen on the floor, and one of the old ladies actually patted him on the head as he scrabbled round for it. When Leonora, who had a special braille card, won a voucher for a shampoo and perm at a local hairdresser, the caller shouted out, "Let the little lad collect it. Let's have a big hand for the little fella." And everyone applauded as he clumped to the front, beetroot red. That was very, very kind of you, said Leonora when he got back to his seat. Now, let's go to the cafe upstairs here and have a chat. She bought him a slice of banoffee pie, and they sat on the table by the window. The dog rested its chin on Stuart's knee while he ate. Is the pie nice? Asked Leonora. Oh, fantastic, said Stuart. Leonora laughed. You sound just like your great-uncle. That was his favourite word when he was a boy. When he was a boy? You mean you knew him when he was my age? I grew up in the house that I live in now. At the bottom of our garden on the other side of the wall was the Horten factory. When they weren't at school, Tony and his brother Ray, your grandfather, were there all the time, playing in the yard, learning the trade. Well, Ray was learning the trade. Tony was practicing magic most of the time. I wonder whether you look like him. I remember that he had the most marvellous green eyes. Stuart looked at her own eyes, blue but sightless. But, he began, I could see then, she said. Never very well, but enough to watch and remember. It wasn't until I was much older, after I'd left college and started teaching, that I went completely blind. She leaned forward and ruffled the dog's ears. And luckily for me, I've got Pluto now, she said. I haven't got green eyes, said Stuart, but I'm very short, just like Tony. Oh, short, she said dismissively, waving her hand. Tony's height didn't matter. He was short in the way that a stick of dynamite's short, crackling with energy and ideas, and I can show you exactly what he looked like as a youngster. She fished in her holdall and brought out a scrapbook. This was made by my big sister Lily, she said, and her voice trembled a bit. She took a breath. It was her engagement present for Tony. Have a look at the first page. Stuart took the book from her and turned it the right way up. The words, Our Story, were inscribed in curly writing on the front. He opened it to the first page, and his stomach jolted. There was a faded photograph of a small boy grinning from beneath the brim of a top hat. It was the very same small boy that he'd seen pulling faces on every single page of the book in the library. Is that my great-uncle? He asked. The boy in the top hat? That's him, Leonora nodded. That photograph was taken on the day he earned his first wages for magic. He performed at a children's party and was paid 2 shillings and 6pence, all in threepences. He was so proud. He called it his magical money and said that he'd never, ever spend it. Children, that must be the same money that was in the money box that Stuart got. Stuart stared at the picture. Great-uncle Tony was gripping a wand with one hand, but his other hand was held out towards the camera, and in the palm was a cluster of coins. Stuart, how did you find me? Asked Leonora abruptly. Oh, I put a 3pence in an old Horten's weighing machine, said Stuart. I know it sounds a bit mad, but that's what I did. And the needle swung round to 79, and the words Grave Street flat E was scratched into the paintwork next to it. He waited to see if Leonora would laugh or scoff, but she said nothing. And before that, said Stuart, feeling reckless, I put a 3pence into the phone box, and it rang even though the line had been cut. Again, Leonora was silent. And I found these 3pences in a tin just like the one you showed me, and yesterday I found an old note in the false bottom of the tin, and it's from Great-uncle Tony. He meant it for my father. He wanted him to find the workshop. This time Leonora made a little squeaking noise. Oh! And her cheeks flushed rose pink. I knew it, she said. I knew Tony was behind it. Did the note say anything else? Well, it said that he had to go away and that he might not be able to get back. Leonora nodded. Do you know where he went? Asked Stuart. No, answered Leonora, but I know why he went. He went to find my sister Lily. Why? Where did she go? Leonora placed her hand on Pluto's head as if to steady herself. Some people thought that she died in the factory fire in 1940, she said. Some people thought she must have left Tony after an argument. You're probably the first person I ever met who will believe the truth. So that implies that Lily wasn't killed in the fire, that Lily somehow disappeared, and maybe Tony went to find her. Now, talking of Teeny Tiny Tony Horten, we haven't seen him anywhere today. And I've been looking around for him, and I've looked around. I can't find him anywhere, and I thought, I don't know where he might be. I suppose he could be in that vice, but last time I looked, he'd escaped from the vice, you see. It's Jeannie. She's got a rope. What on earth has she done with him? Oh, there he is. He's fine. Oh, hang on. It's deadly sharks.